Long ago, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. Yet the youngest was so radiant that even the sun, which had seen countless faces over the years, seemed to linger whenever it shone upon her. Not far from the king's castle stretched a deep and quiet forest. Tall trees stood close together, their leaves whispering softly above. Beneath an old linden tree, hidden in the shade, there was a cool stone well. Its water lay dark and still, untouched by the noise of the world. On warm afternoons, when the day felt slow and heavy, the princess often walked into the forest alone. She would sit beside the well, resting her hands on the cool stone and enjoying the calm that settled there. To pass the time, she played with a golden ball. She would toss it gently into the air and catch it again, watching it flash in the sunlight. The simple rhythm of the game pleased her, and the ball was her most cherished plaything. One day, as she lifted her hands to catch it once more, the ball slipped past her fingers. Instead of falling back into her palms, it struck the ground and rolled away straight toward the well. The princess leaned forward just in time to see it disappear into the dark water below. The well was deep, far deeper than it appeared, and the surface soon became still again, as if the ball had never been there at all. For a moment, she sat in silence. Then she began to cry. At first her tears fell quietly, but soon her sorrow grew. She cried louder and louder, unable to comfort herself. The forest seemed to listen, holding her sound among the trees. As she sat there in distress, a gentle voice suddenly spoke. "Why are you crying so sadly, princess?" it asked. Your tears would soften even a stone. Startled, she looked around to see where the voice came from. Near the edge of the well, a frog had lifted his head above the water. His skin was dark and smooth, his eyes round and watchful. "Oh, it is only you," the princess said, brushing at her tears. "I am crying because my golden ball has fallen into the well." "Do not cry," the frog replied calmly. "I can help you. But tell me, what will you give me if I bring your ball back to you?" The princess answered quickly, eager and hopeful. "Anything you wish, my clothes, my jewels, my pearls, whatever you desire." The frog shook his head slowly. "I do not want your treasures," he said. "I do not care for gold or fine things. But if you will promise to care for me, if you will let me be your companion, sit beside you, and share your days, then I will dive down and return your golden ball." "Oh, yes," the princess said without hesitation. "I promise all of that if you will only bring it back." But even as she spoke, she thought to herself that the frog could not possibly mean such things. "He lives in the water," she thought. "He croaks and swims. Surely he cannot follow me beyond the well." As soon as the frog heard her promise, he dipped his head beneath the surface. The water rippled softly as he disappeared into the depths. Moments passed. Then the water stirred again, and the frog rose back to the surface with the golden ball held carefully in his mouth. He pushed it onto the grass, where it gleamed as brightly as before. The princess was filled with joy. She picked up her ball at once, holding it close as if afraid to lose it again. "Wait," called the frog. "Wait for me. I cannot move as quickly as you." But she did not listen. Clutching her golden ball, the princess hurried away through the forest, leaving the frog behind by the well. His voice faded into the quiet as she returned home, and before long she forgot him entirely. The frog, at last, slipped back into the cool water, and the forest grew still once more. The next evening, the princess sat at the long table in the great hall of the castle. Candles glowed softly, and the sound of quiet voices filled the room. She ate from her golden plate beside her father, the king, and the members of the court. Suddenly, from below the marble steps, there came a strange sound. Plip, plop, plip, plop. The sound was slow and damp. Unlike footsteps, it echoed faintly through the hall. Then there was a knock at the door. A small voice called out, "Princess, youngest daughter of the king, open the door for me." The princess felt her heart begin to race. She rose from her seat and walked toward the door, wondering who could be calling her so calmly at such an hour. When she opened it, she saw the frog sitting on the step, looking up at her. Startled, she quickly shut the door and hurried back to her place at the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she sat down. The king noticed her distress at once. "My child," he asked gently, "why are you frightened? Is there danger outside?" "No, father," she said quietly. "There is only a frog." "A frog?" the king asked. "And what does this frog want?" The princess hesitated, then spoke truthfully. "Yesterday, when I was playing near the well in the forest, my golden ball fell into the water. I was very upset, and the frog brought it back to me. In return, I promised that he could be my companion. I did not think he could follow me here, but now he has come." Before the king could reply, the knock came again, and the small voice spoke once more, softly but clearly. "Youngest daughter of the king, open the door for me. Do you not remember what you promised yesterday by the well?" The king listened carefully. Then he turned to his daughter. "What you have promised," he said, "you must keep. Go and open the door." Slowly, the princess rose and returned to the entrance. This time, she opened the door and stepped aside. The frog hopped into the hall and followed her toward the table. The sound of his movement echoed lightly against the stone floor. When they reached her seat, the frog looked up at her and said, "Lift me up beside you." She hesitated, uncertain and uncomfortable. But when the king nodded, she gently lifted the frog and placed him on the seat beside her. "Now," said the frog calmly, "move your golden plate closer so we may eat together." Reluctantly, the princess did as he asked. The frog ate with quiet satisfaction. But the princess found it difficult to swallow. Each bite felt heavy, and she wished the moment would pass. When the frog had finished, he said, "I am full now and very tired." The princess felt a familiar unease return, though the hall remained calm and bright. She lowered her eyes, unsure of what would be asked next. The king watched his daughter closely. "Remember," he said gently but firmly, "you must not turn away from someone who has helped you in a moment of need." The princess took a slow breath and nodded. The evening grew quieter, and the candles burned lower. As the night settled peacefully over the castle, the great hall slowly emptied as the evening came to an end. Candles flickered low, and footsteps softened as servants moved quietly through the corridors. The princess stood beside her chair, unsure of what to do next. The frog looked up at her, his voice calm and unhurried. "I am tired," he said. "The day has been long. Please take me somewhere quiet, where I may rest." The princess felt a wave of discomfort rise in her chest. She did not want to touch him, and yet she remembered her father's words. A promise was not something meant only for easy moments. With care, she lifted the frog gently and carried him up the wide stone staircase. Her steps were slow, not from fear, but from uncertainty. The hallway upstairs was dim and peaceful. Moonlight slipped through tall windows, laying pale shapes across the floor. She placed the frog near the edge of her chamber, hoping the distance would be enough. But the frog spoke again, softly. "I am cold," he said, "and I am weary. Please do not leave me alone." The princess turned away, her eyes filling with quiet tears. She felt overwhelmed not by danger, but by the weight of responsibility she did not yet understand. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "You must not turn away from someone who has helped you." She returned, lifted the frog once more, and set him down carefully beside her. The room grew still. Then, in a moment that felt less like magic and more like a release, the frog's form changed. There was no flash of light, no loud sound, only a gentle shift, like a breath being let go. Where the frog had been, there now stood a young man. He looked at the princess with kind eyes, full of gratitude and relief. "I was once a prince," he said quietly. "A spell placed upon me by a cruel enchantment bound me to the well. Only a promise kept could set me free." The princess listened, her fear slowly melting into understanding. "You did not rescue me with force," he continued. "You rescued me with honesty." The night passed calmly. When morning came, sunlight filled the room, soft and warm. Outside, a carriage waited, its horses standing patiently, their harnesses shining. A servant stood nearby, faithful Heinrich, his face filled with quiet joy. For a long time, sorrow had pressed upon his heart. Now, at last, it lifted. As the carriage began its journey, a sound echoed behind them, a sharp crack, like iron snapping. The prince turned in concern. "It is not the carriage," Heinrich said gently. "It is the sorrow breaking away from my heart." The road stretched forward, bright and open. The princess looked ahead, no longer afraid of promises kept or paths unknown. And so, the story did not end suddenly. It moved forward calmly and kindly, like morning arriving without haste.